What's going on, guys? Ben here, M-itx, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Co-Link Rocket Mini-ITX computer case. Now, I'm going to do things a bit differently than I normally do. As you can see, I've already got the build in it, and we're going to start looking at that. And then, after we have a look at the build and the insides, I'm going to slap the side panels back on, and we'll take a look at the outside of the case as a whole. Now, this is a 9.6 liter aluminum small form factor chassis, as you would imagine. I mean, it is completely tiny. I mean, if you could just see, I can almost stretch my fingers across the whole front of it. So that just goes to show you how small it really is. It does also have support for dual slot graphics cards up to 310 millimeter in length. So you can still fit a decent card in here. So it's going to allow you to pack a lot of punch in a small area. It has support for two 2.5 hard drives or SSDs with a unique mounting feature. They kind of go under the case, but we'll take more of a look at that in a minute as well. What else do we got? We got support for low profile coolers up to 54 millimeter in height. Unfortunately, I have lost these Z97 brackets for my low profile cooler, so I've not been able to mount it on my Mini-ITX board, but we can still show you the rest of the build, all of it bar the cooler. Now, yeah, it also has two USB 3.0 connections on the front panel there, as well as the power button, and it does have the power lights around the side of it. And that is it for the front I/O. I mean, very simplistic, very basic. This computer is going to allow you to, you can put a great little LAN rig in here or whatever you need for, so whatever you need really, because I mean, it's going to fit almost anywhere you can think of. Now, moving things around, we'll take a quick look at the inside of the case. As you can see here, the power supply is mounted to the front. Up in the top here, there is a where's the plug for it is up here in the back, but there is a cable that runs through, and you can plug it into the top of your power supply in here, so there's no need to worry about that. As you can see, there's plenty of room underneath it to allow you to install all your cables, whatever you need. I like to do things the hard way. I actually installed the power supply up here before I plugged any of my cables in. Wasn't my best moment, but it worked out fine, and I didn't have to take the power supply out. I just kind of had to go at it with both hands, one from each side, to get things plugged in properly. Now, as you can see, it's a Mini-ITX board, and you can see here we've actually got a decent look at the board itself. Now that the cooler's not here, we can actually see all this. As you can see, most of the wires are tucked out of the side. Just for reference, this is an Asus Z97 motherboard, the Mini-ITX one, of course. So I just let you know kind of like the pin layouts and the layout of everything. As you can see, coming down this side, we have got the USB 3.0, our SATA power, our SATA cable for the hard drive, or our SSD in this case, and then the 24-pin cable is right here. They're all right there next to the power supply, so you can kind of just tuck all their cables under the power supply, which is great. We had to run the 8-pin cable across the bottom of the tray, the bottom of the case even, but that's not a big deal. It's easily hidden out of the way. I mean, especially if you had a cooler and stuff in here, it's easy enough. And obviously this case isn't really, while some people will do show builds in it, it's more of a packing a punch in a small area. And obviously you're going to normally put the side panels on it, which aren't tempered glass. They're not acrylic, they're not see-through. They do have great ventilation, which we will look at in a minute, but it's not really a showpiece type of case, really. Obviously you can do that, but it's meant to shove it somewhere. I mean, you could almost fit this thing under your seat in your car had you needed to put a full gaming rig in your rig. But yeah, as you can see, everything fits here. What is nice is it comes with an included riser cable, because I know some of you are probably looking at like, wait a minute, there's no graphics card, but what's that plugged in? Well, you plug the riser case in, you run it through the top there, and over here on this side, while it does kind of block some of the fans, it's not enough to stop the airflow. And as you can see, we've got a GTX 1060 3GB from our friends over at Gigabyte. So while this isn't the biggest card in the world, it's still a sufficient card, especially for something in the size of a case like this. Like, it's absolutely amazing what you can do with these small form factor cases. And while I think to mention it, this Be Quiet PSU that you see here is a SFXL, or large, so it's a small form factor, large power supply. So it's smaller than your average ATX one. You're not going to be able to take the power supply out of your full tower case and slap it in here. You'll want to get an SFX one, but as you can see, the Be Quiet SFXL fits in there perfect. That's a little 500 watt one as well. It's enough to power up our 1060. But as you can see, the riser cable kind of comes over it. We've got plenty of room. I mean, I've got another couple inches here for a longer graphics card, should I have had one. So obviously you will want to take that into note and be careful with it, because things are tight, but there's no issue with putting a decent gaming graphics card in here. And again, as you can see, we've got all of this real estate here, some behind the graphics card, some to the side of it here for cables. Now again, I know a lot of people worry about cable management, but there's not a lot of options in this case. The best thing you can do for yourself is try to get them in there and then kind of just zip tie the cables to themselves so they're in the case and you don't have to worry about them poking out onto the side panels when you put those back on. Around to the back, as I mentioned, we've got our plug for the power supply, so you just plug your mains outlet into that, and like I said, there's a cable that runs across the top and plugs into the power supply. As you see, we've got our 2 expansion bays, as we would expect to see on an ITX motherboard, but obviously we've got that nice riser cable in there, so we've got the vertical GPU mount in there, which is going to allow us to pull more air from the side panel when it's on, and it also allows the case to be smaller. And then of course we've got the rear I/O of the motherboard. Now, as I was mentioning, the SSD mounts are kind of unique and they are kind of hidden. It's hard to see, but right in here is a little thumb screw that, if I can take it out, bear with me 2 secs. It's a little thumb screw, and then what you have here is you have the SSD mounting tray. Now, I've plugged my SSD in, so it didn't quite come out like it was supposed to. But basically, this tray will slide out and you can mount 2 solid state drives in here. Now, depending on how things are going, you'll want to take a look at this first to make sure you get your SSDs in the right way, because there's not going to be anything worse than putting this in here like this and then finding out, oh crap, I can't plug my cables into it. So if you put it in like this, obviously there are the screws on the side here, so you can screw your solid state drive in so it doesn't go anywhere. You put it in like that, then you can simply, simply just slide it back in there. And now, while it's hard to see because there's a full build in here, there is actually a hole in the front of the case here where I can go ahead and plug in my SATA and SATA power cables quite easily, to be honest. It's quite a nice hole. There's just enough room in there, especially if you got a couple right angle fittings on your stuff. So that's pretty much it for the build inside the Colink. I'm going to go ahead and slap the side panels on, and we'll take a closer look at the case as you would see it first off, and we'll wrap the review up. Alright, so I've put the side panels back on and I've put the bottom back on where the SSD mounts go. As you can see, for the bottom there's 4 screws, and the same with each side panel. There's 4 screws in each of the corners, so it's very easy to get off. And now, as you can see, the side panels are very well ventilated. There's plenty of holes here that's going to allow the components to pull some air through. And as you'll also notice, there's a little gap towards the front here and a little gap towards the fan. And there is also a fan that comes included with the Colink rocket that is right up top here. So it's going to help to move some air around and get some airflow going, because I know that is going to be a major concern for a lot of people. However, there are loads of small form factor enthusiasts that will look at this case and be quite happy with it. One of the things I liked the most about it was the fact that the motherboard and the graphics card were kind of on different sides of the little wall. This is going to help with heat dissipation and keep the heat from different areas, and it also allows it, again, to be much smaller than it would be as if the graphics card had to plug directly into the motherboard. Currently retailing for about £160 on Overclockers UK. I'm going to go ahead and award the Colink Rocket with our recommended award. For me, it's a great little ITX case, but in terms of price, I think the £160 it's a bit steep for me personally. I'm not going to go into too much about it, but I just feel that the price could be a little bit better. Though, in saying that, you can't take anything away from this case. It has some good features. It's compromised from high-grade material. Like, it's not cheap aluminum or anything. Like, it's proper, thick, nice aluminum, so you don't have to worry about it bending and folding. And overall, again, it is a decent case. So, one last time with the recommended award, many thanks to our friends over at Overclockers UK for sending in the Colink rocket for this review. As always, guys, please stay tuned for more content in the near future.